Look at verses 12 through 14 in Daniel chapter 10. And if you can, won't you stand and reverence the word of God? If you can, I understand. If you can't, I understand. Daniel chapter 10. Look at verses 12 through 14. This is really where we get our Daniel fast from, but I want to look at this to help us out even as we're praying while we're fasting, or if we're fasting, or just praying in general, and what happens in the spiritual world while we are yet praying. Y'all have it? Daniel chapter 10, verses 12 through 14. If you have it, say, I got it. Then said he unto me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thy heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me one of the 20 days. That's 21 days Daniel was fasting. But lo, Michael, that's one of the angels, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, and yet the vision is for many days. Y'all got to stay with me today. Y'all got to stay with me. I want to talk about prayers that push through. All right. Prayers that push through. Prayers that push through. New Jerusalem, I really want to ask a question because I want to know from you, have you ever prayed and nothing happened? You fast, you cry, you call others to stand with you, and still silence. Still no breakthrough. Still no change. It's in those moments that doubt tries to move in. The inner voice whisper, maybe God didn't hear you. Maybe your prayers aren't working. Maybe nothing's going to change. But what if the silence doesn't mean no? What if it actually means hold on? Help is fighting its way to you. David, y'all, was in that same space of silence. He positioned his posture towards God, pursuing purpose and pleading for perspective. For 21 days, he petitioned persistently, but heaven was hushed. And yet behind the physical pause was a powerful private and spiritual conflict. The provision was prepared on day one, but it had to press through principalities and powers in the heavenly places. So this text reminds us of a powerful truth. Just because we can't see the answer doesn't mean God didn't send it. And just because there's a delay doesn't mean there's a denial. And sometimes your prayer triggers a battle in the unseen. So today I want to speak to the persons who've been pressing in, getting weary. You've been trusting God, but time is testing your faith. You've been praying, but nothing's moved yet. I've come to tell you this morning, don't stop, don't give up, don't back down. Your prayers are pushing through. They are stirring up movement in places you can't even see. They are shaking the heavens, and help, real help, y'all, is on the way. Can I give you the text? Because y'all act like y'all don't hear me. Daniel chapter 10 takes place in the third year of King Cyrus of Persia around 536 BC. And at this point, Daniel is an elderly man somewhere in his 80s who has spent most of his life in exile. And some of the Jews have returned to Jerusalem, but the rebuilding of the temple had stalled and discouragement was nigh. Hope was low, burdens by the conditions of his people. Daniel began to fast and Daniel began to pray. And that's where we ought to be, New Jerusalem, every now and then when we see the condition of the world and the condition of our people. We ought to have a fast and we ought to begin to pray. And for 21 days, he sought God. Can I hold up, y'all? He was in bereavement, abstaining from food, and pleading for understanding. But during that time, heaven was silent. And I don't know about you, but I've been there when I fast and I prayed, and it looks like God wasn't going to come through, and it looks like God was silent. But can I give you some good news? Have you ever been in that place when the weight of the world feels like it's sitting swelling on your shoulders, and for some strange reason the weight keeps getting heavier and harder to handle? New Jerusalem, have you ever felt like the world was weighing you down, like the stress kept stacking, the pressure kept piling, and the burdens get bigger and bolder by the minute? This text, y'all, can I preach like I feel now? This text, y'all, is designed to teach us a tangible lesson that was ever going on behind the scene when we are praying. It seems like nothing is happening. But can I encourage somebody this morning? There's something happening. Even though it's silent on God's end, God is still working some things out. Let me get into this real quick. The first lesson is from this text is this: God hears you the moment you pray. It's right there in the text, because it says from the first moment Daniel humbled himself and began to seek God, his prayer was heard in heaven. Now watch this, y'all. He fasted 21 days. But here's the reality. God didn't hear him after 21 days. He didn't hear him after he wept, not after he fasted, but the first day. Y'all missing this. Let that settle in your spirit. It's got to settle in your spirit, because heaven hears what your heart cries, even when your mouth can barely form the words. And that's why our warriors of old would shout something like this: if I could say a word. Is it just me? But I'll just wave my hand. God is not hard of hearing. He doesn't need a second request or a loud volume. When your heart reaches up, his ears lean down. But here's where we struggle. I want to help us today. Here's where we struggle. And I said we because it includes me. Here's where we struggle. When God hears us, but he doesn't move how or when we expect. We start to confuse his silence with absence. Hear me, y'all. Hear me. Because silence is not the same as abandonment. God's silence doesn't mean God is missing. It doesn't mean he's ignoring us. It doesn't mean that he's inactive. It simply means he's moving in a dimension you can't see yet. We think if I don't see anything changing, maybe nothing's happening. But Daniel teaches us just because you don't see movement doesn't mean that God didn't send the miracle. And here's the reality. Some of our miracles ain't set well with us yet, because God is still preparing some ground for you, so you'll be able to respond to the miracle when God said the miracle is now at your feet. Are y'all in here? And just because you can't feel him doesn't mean you've been forgotten. And just because you don't hear anything doesn't mean he hasn't spoken. And just because the doors hasn't opened yet doesn't mean that he threw away the key. It may be delayed, but it's still destined. So don't let temporary silence convince you of a permanent absence, because the same God who heard Daniel on day one has already heard you. I need to do that again. Somebody missing me, because somebody said, I've been praying 20 years and it hadn't happened yet. Well, just keep on waiting, because here's the reality. God says, you ain't ready for what you've been praying for the last 20 years. So I've discovered whoever I'm talking to, he might not come when you want him. He might not show up on your clock. He might not show up on your calendar. He might not show up on your schedule. And you may cry out at midnight and not see daylight until morning. You may fast on Monday and not get the breakthrough until Friday. You may have prayed years ago and still be waiting today. But hear me out. God is not bound by time. Can I tell you why? He created time. And because he sees the end from the beginning, he shows up not when you want him, but when you need him most. Am I helping somebody? He's not governed by your urgency. He's moved by your faith. And while he may not come early, here's the reality. He sure won't come late. He comes right on time. It's his time. It's perfect time. It's appointed time, because God doesn't rush and he's never missed. And that's why we sing that song, You Can't Hurry God. You just got to wait. You got to trust him and give him time, no matter how long it takes. He's a God you can't hurry. You don't have to worry. He may not come when you want him, but he's right on time. And that ought to be somebody shouting, that happened to me. I prayed some prayers and it didn't come when I wanted, but when they did come, they was right on time. I got some witness. You ask Abraham, he waited 25 years, but the promised son came on time. Ask Lazarus, he was 4 days late by human standard, but right on time for a resurrection. Ask the children of Israel, when the Red Sea was in front and Pharaoh was behind, God showed up in time and made a way. Can I pause right here? Because here's the reality. God will set it up that he'll setting you up, that he'll give you some traction, that you'll be able to walk on your miracle. Am I talking to somebody today? Even ask yourself, how many times did God show up not early, but exactly when you need him the most? So don't lose faith in the waiting. He might not move when you want, y'all. But trust this, he's always moving. And he's always on time. So keep praying, not to convince God, but to keep yourself connected while the answer is in transit. All right, let me help somebody out. All I'm saying, my blessing is on the way. Y'all miss me? I said, you got to keep on praying, not to convince God, but to keep yourself connected while the answer is in transit. And I don't know about you, but I want to do this again. My blessing. Am I the only one? There ought to be somebody shouting back with me. My blessing is on the way. It's on the way. It's on the way. It's on the way. It's on the way. My blessing is on the way. I'm trying to get out of this. My blessing is on the way, y'all. It's on the way. It's on the way. Y'all didn't hear me. My blessing. Can I preach like I feel? Not only that, but I like this, but there is a war in the unseen. Don't y'all miss this. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withheld me 120 days. Watch this. Daniel's prayer was not ignored, but was intercepted. Let me do that again. Y'all missing this. Daniel's prayer was not ignored. Daniel's prayer was intercepted. Let me help somebody out. Not by accident, not by delay in heaven's processing center, but by a spiritual blockage, a demonic principality that resists the messenger of God for 21 days. Here's the truth, y'all. Here's the truth. Here's the truth. While Daniel was fasting on earth, there was fighting in heaven. While he was mourning in the natural, there was warfare in the spiritual. Because anytime you pray with power and purpose, something shifts in the invisible realm. Are y'all hearing me? Because here's what we got to understand. In your prayer, spiritual warfare is real. You might not see it with your eyes, but it's happening. And that's why Paul says to the church at Ephesus, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you might be able to stand against the wiles of the devil, and having to done all, stand. Paul says, hey, this is how you're going to stand, because once you become a child of God, you take off your old clothes and you put on some new clothes. Paul says you ought to dress in the attire of God. And when you dress in the attire of God, you're ready for spiritual battle. I don't know what's coming up against me, but I'm dressed for success. I don't know what might happen, but here's the reality. I got on my helmet. I got on my belt. I got on my shoes. I got on my shield. And here's the reality. All that protects me from the enemy. Because here's the reality. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Are y'all hearing me? Can I help some folks out? Because we running around here popping one another and shooting one another, stabbing one another, talking about one another. You ain't my real enemy. My real enemy is in the spiritual realm, trying to intercept my prayer so it won't get to God. I'm trying to help us. So your prayer just don't move things in the earth. They disturb things in the spirit. And when you pray, the enemy get nervous because he knows heaven is getting involved. Preach right. The enemy, y'all, wants to block the blessing. Are y'all hearing me? Frustrate your faith and get you to quit before the answer arrives. That's why Daniel said, hey, I've been doing this for 21 days. And say, God said, Daniel, I heard you the first time. And I want to say this to somebody. I don't care how long you've been praying. God heard you the first time. But there's something going on in the spiritual realm. There's war going on that you don't even see. Are y'all with me? But here's the good news. The enemy can delay, but he can't deny what God has already decreed. Did y'all hear me? He can resist, but he can't reverse what God has released. So if it gets harder after you pray, don't panic. That's not the time to give up. It's the time to gear up. That's the time to press in, to fight in faith, and to pray with persistence, because pressure is often a sign that breakthrough is on the way. So I want to encourage somebody, don't stop pushing just because it gets tough. Push until the heavens break open. Push until peace shows up. Push until healing comes. And there ought to be a few folks in here say, yes, I know about pushing, about healing. I've been sick myself, and I saw God do some miraculous thing in my body. Push until the answer breaks through the opposition, because even in the unseen, God is working, warring, and winning on your behalf. And I don't know about you, but see, sometimes it get heavy, y'all. And I used to lift weights Brother Hugh, and when I started off, the weights was heavy. And I kept on lifting those same weights every day. And after a while, that weight that I was lifting from day one, after so many days, the weight gets lighter. And that's all I'm trying to tell somebody, how easy it is for us to do it more and more as we are praying. I want to pray more and more, so because I know something is happening in the spiritual realm. And I know God sometimes delay because of the enemy tries to intercept what God is doing. And there ought to be some folks in this building. Keep on praying, because your prayers will push through. I'm out of here when I tell you this. Finally, y'all, help is on the way. I like how they put this. It says, then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. This is what I want us to see when the battle in the heavenlies get intense, when the resistance refused to let up, when the answers couldn't break through by ordinary means, God sent help. Michael, y'all, is one of the archangels, a warrior of heaven, was dispatched. Can I tell you why? Because when God makes a promise, he also makes provision to protect it. Let me help somebody out. What did you just say, right? I say, what God has for me, it's for me. Let me do that again on good authority. I say, what God has for me. And I can see the theology of our warriors of old when they would sing all night, all day. Angels watching over me, my Lord. So here's what that means for us. Sometimes what you're praying for is so significant, so strategic, so saturated with kingdom purpose that reinforces have to be released. What did you just say? Sometimes your prayer is so important to God, and because it's so important to God, the enemy try to intercept and intervene and make sure your prayer don't get to God. But when it's in God's purpose and God's will, here's the reality. I don't care how many amped enemies that come up against you. No weapon. Y'all should have been shouting back with me. No weapons that is formed against me shall be able to prosper. You may feel like nothing is happening, but behind the scene, God is mobilizing miracles. Can I just tell you what I just said? God's working it out. He dispatches angels to fight, strength to endure, and people to stand with you. There are some folk who've been real about what I got going on and say, Pastor, I'm praying not for you, I'm praying with you. And there, every now and then, you need not just the angels, you need folks around you. My mama prayed for me. She had me. Ooh, right. She had me on her mind. She took the time to pray for me. And I don't know about you, but some of us are still here by some prayers we hadn't heard people even pray. Can I do that again? She's going to get happy when I tell her. My grandmother prayed for me. She had me on her mind. She took the time just to pray for me. So I discovered you are never praying alone. You're never waiting alone. You're never fighting alone. What if I told you while you're crying in your room, heaven was calling for backup? What if I told you while you were crying in your room, heaven was setting something up to make you feel a little better? While you were pacing the floor, angels were preparing for war. He was already there. He heard us the first time. So help was already on the way before you even realized you needed it. If you could see what was happening in the spirit, you'll stop worrying and start worshiping. If you could see what's happening in the spirit, you'll stop pacing and start praising. Because even if the breakthrough hasn't showed up in your hands, it's already in motion in heaven. And every now and then I can see what God is doing when I am praying. And every now and then I see the product of my prayer. But sometimes it looks like God blesses me with some stuff I ain't prayed for. And I now discover there are some other folk who are praying for me. You may feel weary, but heaven is working. You may feel surrounded, but you're also being supported. You may feel stuck, but can I shout this? Heaven is on the way. So I want to encourage somebody to push. Let me do that again. I want to encourage somebody. Push. I want to encourage somebody. Push. Pray until something happens. And I remember I got two children. Justin is the oldest. Mary is my young baby. And I was there when both of them was actually born. And Justin was a little rougher than Mary. But then I remember what the nurse and the doctors was saying. They was telling Denise to push. And and I remember well how she was hollering and saying stuff out her head. But the doctor kept on telling one more push. And Sister Martin, her pain went away with that last push, and Justin was born. I don't know about you, it's something about when you're pushing in pain. Weeping may endure but a night. Joy comes in the morning. And then the second time it was Mary. Somewhere around 7:53 a.m., the doctor couldn't get to the room. And Denise only pushed one time. I guess she was thinking about the fact that there was joy coming. And y'all, here's a reality. I had two great joys in my life when Justin was born and when Mary was born. But then I've learned now when trouble rises and pain comes in, I got to push. So, what do you do when heaven goes silent? What do you do when the breakthrough doesn't come on day one? What do you do even if the breakthrough don't come on day 21? What do you do when it feels like your prayers are hitting the ceiling and bouncing back? Can I tell you what you need to do? Am I there? Push. pray until something happens. You pray when it's quiet. You pray when it's confusing. You pray when it's heavy. You pray when it hurts. You pray until the silence breaks. Until the answer pushes through the opposition. Until what's been released in the spirit manifests in your life. Can I shout this one more time? Somebody ought to be. Now, can I tell you why I can push? Can I really tell you why I can push? Can I tell you why I can push? One Friday. Jesus hung on a cross. One Friday, he laid his head in the locks of his shoulder. One Friday, he gave up the ghost, went in a borrowed tomb, buried him in a borrowed grave, but he pushed his way and got up on resurrection ground. All power, heaven and earth, is in his hands. And now because of him, I have the ability now to pray to God. Can I help somebody out? I don't need no priest. I don't need to see smoke clear and smoke get dark. I don't need all that. I just need this. Lord, I'm your child. And I'm standing in need of prayer. Doors of the church is open.